Just weeks before our wedding, my fiancée suddenly dropped a bombshell. She wanted to open the relationship and explore other options. I was blindsided, heartbroken, and confused, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to start a marriage built on uncertainty and betrayal. So, I called off the wedding and walked away before making the biggest mistake of my life. 2 weeks before our wedding, she suggested we attend a therapy session together. She was already seeing a therapist individually and thought a joint discussion before the big day, where we could be completely open, would be beneficial. That struck me as a bit odd. I assumed we were already fully transparent with each other, considering we were about to get married, right? She was also quite private about her therapy, rarely discussing it, and I'd never met her therapist, so this sudden invitation felt unusual. The day arrived, and I went, but as a precaution, I had my phone recording audio. My fiancé was already there. I waited about 20 minutes before being called in. The therapist greeted me warmly. We exchanged pleasantries, and she mentioned I wasn't at all like my fiancé had described. I took it as a compliment. Then, she turned to my fiancé and said, "This might be harder than we thought." That definitely unnerved me, but I'm generally a calm person and didn't react, just maintained that awkward smile we all do in uncomfortable situations. The therapist began speaking, delivering a brief speech I won't repeat. My fiancé took my hand as the therapist explained that we live in a modern world and my fiancé desired a non-traditional marriage going forward. I smiled, unsure what that actually meant. In my head, I wondered if she meant she wouldn't be subservient or sacrifice her career, typical modern woman, girl power ideas. But no, she was actually suggesting that once we were married, she wanted the freedom to sleep with other men. Another unconventional marriage style, I suppose. It is 2018 after all. Yet, she emphasized her deep love for me and how she wouldn't be comfortable with me having the same freedom, fearing it would break her heart to know I found other women attractive, and that one of them might steal me away. I let them continue speaking. They were quite articulate and grew more confident, likely empowered by my lack of reaction and silence. It seemed they had definitely rehearsed this. Then, I asked the therapist if she was licensed. Her reaction showed this wasn't what she expected as my first question. She confirmed she was, so I told her to explain to my fiancé why we would no longer be getting married and why our relationship was ending immediately. I wished them well and left the office. Now, I want to report the therapist. I'm unsure if I should report her to the clinic or if there's a regulatory board for therapists. I don't think they're attempting to corner me, but her conduct felt unprofessional, and I want her to be held accountable for her actions. That session truly bothered me. To be clear, there was no positive outcome possible from that discussion my fiancé and the therapist had with me, even if she had suggested a completely open marriage where I could also sleep with other women. My response would have been the same. That's not a marriage, it's a pretense. It also dawned on me that she might have been unfaithful. With this newfound clarity, certain things don't quite add up. I was truly naive. I listened to the recording, and I still can't believe what was said. Regardless, I called off the wedding. I'm an easygoing person. I don't seek arguments or conflicts because my life is guided by principles and common sense. This might have led my ex to believe I'd be easily manipulated, but she was mistaken to think that. After listening to the recording a few times, I'm sure the therapist realized I wasn't how my fiancé had described me in their sessions, hence the comment about it being harder than we thought. Now that the wedding is off, people are starting to ask questions, and I'm not comfortable answering them. How do I handle this? I'm sure my ex is trying to manage the situation, but I have the recording, and if she misrepresents things too much, I won't hesitate to let people know what she wanted us to discuss. My parents and family also want answers, and I'm not sure what to tell them. I don't want them to think I was foolish for letting my ex get to the point where she so confidently told me she wanted to sleep with other men. She's also constantly calling my phone, my best friend's phone, my brother's phone, saying things like, "We can work on this." I didn't understand what they were telling me in the therapy session. It was the therapist's idea. She was against it, and so on. All her pleas fall on deaf ears. I'm no longer listening. We were also working on getting a loan to buy a house, but I've canceled everything. I've essentially severed all our financial and other ties. Her current argument is that in therapy, she revealed her insecurities about our sexual history. I had considerably more partners than her, and the therapist suggested we level the playing field. Regardless of the truth of this, that therapist will be reported once I figure out how and what to say. This post is mostly a vent, but I also want to know how you would deal with questions from friends and family. My ex is undoubtedly doing her own damage control, and I don't want it to become a he said, she said situation. I do have the recording and am wondering if I should send it to interested parties. My ex doesn't know I have the recording. A small update. I'm at work and just received confirmation that the journal has been returned to my ex. I sent it early this morning with our office courier, and she had to sign for it. As some recommended, I concluded that reading it wouldn't help, as she never took responsibility for this whole situation. Thank you. Update 1. Jokes aside, it's been an interesting 2 weeks since my initial post. Last Monday, I spoke with a lawyer at work about the therapist situation. He looked at me as if I was joking and asked if it was a prank. So I asked if he wanted to hear the recording. Damn right, was his answer. I spoke with him again the next day. By the end, he pointed out a few things I hadn't noticed on the recording. The therapist consistently said, "We think, we want, we talked about, we decided." Not once did she say, "Your ex here asked me to talk with you," or "Your ex wants you to know," or anything similar. It was always we this, we that. He also asked what my ultimate goal was. Did I want to sue? He didn't think I personally had a case, which I agreed with. I never intended to sue anyway, just to inform the appropriate institutions and let them handle the therapist. A decision was made to write 2 letters, one addressed to the clinic where the therapist worked and one for the APA. We confirmed she was accredited. By Wednesday, a few more people at work were aware of the situation, including one of our 2 case researchers. She found information about the therapist online, including reviews and contacts for 2 of her previous patients. The therapist didn't have the best reviews. People were upset with her, and we managed to find the 2 we spoke with through social media. They were more than willing to help once we explained the situation, and their stories were no better than mine. The letters grew significantly as we included the signed accounts from the other 2 individuals, as well as my own description of how my ex changed after starting therapy and a detailed account of my meeting with the therapist. Last Friday, I met with her parents. Her parents came to my parents' house, and we had a discussion. My ex was there too, and more information came out that was also added to the report on the therapist. This week, we sent out the reports. There was a reaction from the clinic. They called our office on Thursday morning, most likely to verify if it was a prank or a genuine issue. We spoke with their lawyer or one of their lawyers over the phone, and when we confirmed it was legitimate, someone else was heard in the background saying, "Well, crap." They stated they were taking this very seriously. A conclusion from one of the guys at work was that they probably received other complaints before, but this was the first time someone had documented it so thoroughly. Our letter also mentioned we were reporting this to the APA, which might have intensified their quick response. I don't know what the outcome of this will be, and I consider my issue with it resolved. However, having spoken with the other 2 individuals treated by this therapist, I sincerely hope she is at least investigated because she sounds unhinged and has an agenda. She ruined their relationships too. One of the individuals was a woman, for the record. Then my ex and her parents. Last Friday, my parents called and asked me to visit after work. When I arrived, to my surprise, my ex and her parents were there, too. My first instinct upon seeing their cars in my parents' driveway was to leave. This meeting was supposed to be on my terms, but she tried to take control of it, and that wasn't going to happen. My ex was waiting for me outside. She looked very good. If there was ever a girl you'd want your parents to meet, she was the epitome of that. She told me they were there to talk and see if we could fix this. They meant her parents. She either never told them what happened or gave them a version of the story they weren't buying. She had a journal with her. She told me she started writing in it before therapy and continued until that Friday morning, and that I should read it to clear up this whole mess. I told her this wasn't a book club. I wanted to go inside and get the circus started, but she asked if I could give her 10 minutes. She wanted to talk with me before I spoke with her parents. She kept offering me her journal and started crying. Then my sister showed up, and then my ex's sister showed up. They were already there and came out to check on us. So I took her journal, went inside, said hello, and left my ex in the most isolated part of my parents' garden possible. They have a large garden with many trees and benches. She had quit her job. The stress was too much, and she had a breakdown that escalated and never improved. She's no longer seeing that therapist. She initially started seeing the therapist for work-related issues, but somehow it shifted to our relationship and stayed focused on it because it was the only thing the therapist seemed interested in. She never told her parents why she's my ex. She's seeing another therapist now. He's an older man with a white beard, like Freud. I looked him up online. He's married, attends conferences, and has written a few books on Amazon. He seems like a reliable person. I just listened. She shifted the discussion from herself to us, telling me I would be in control, managing the finances, receiving access to all her devices, being able to track her whereabouts. Any property we owned would be in my name. She would do anything. I wanted to trust her again. Basically, things she had said in her messages over the past weeks. She listed more things than I mentioned. I don't know how she thinks that would be a healthy life for either of us. I asked her if she had cheated. She told me she had the opportunity to cheat, but never did. I believe her, but it also angered me. What does she mean she had the opportunity? If you're in a committed relationship, you don't put yourself in a position where you have this opportunity. You don't want this opportunity. It's like saying, I had the opportunity to kill someone today. Why? What were you doing that such an opportunity arose? Why call it an opportunity anyway? It makes it sound like something positive. That pretty much ended our 10 minutes, and I told her we should go and talk with our parents. So we did. I asked our sisters to leave us alone as it wasn't their concern what was to be discussed. My sister huffed and puffed, but a house made of stone survives hurricanes, and she wasn't one. Well, I spoke and explained what happened, how the therapy session went, and my decision. I didn't mention I had a recording because I never had to. My ex confirmed everything I said, which surprised me. Her father had teary eyes, and that broke my heart. Her mother asked her if this was how she thought they raised her and asked for an explanation. My ex basically told them the same story. Work stress, depression, breaking down, therapy. The therapist wanting to talk only about our relationship, that the therapist told her our relationship was the root of all her stress, that the therapist convinced her I wanted an open relationship, and that she might lose me if she didn't level her sexual experience with me. She explained how my reaction woke her up from her slump. She quit her job and is looking for something less stressful. She said she would do anything to get me back and started crying. My ex mentioned the journal again and said if I read it, it would explain everything, and that she wasn't on board with the therapist's ideas but went along with them because the therapist was a person with authority and experience. Our parents looked at me, and I told them someone's private journal isn't the type of literature I read unless they're a dead poet. Big mistake. My intention was to convey that someone's private journals usually become literature if they're a writer or leader and are typically published posthumously. Also, I was hoping they'd get the hint that I didn't really want to read her journal because it would be of no consequence. What was done was done. Everyone looked at me as if I wished death on my ex. You could feel the hostility in the air. So I said, fine, and promised I would read her journal. You win some, you lose some, and then you use the wrong words. And lose a few more. My ex is seeing a new therapist. She showed her parents' emails confirming her appointments. He's an older man with a white beard, like Freud. I searched him online. He's married, attends conferences, and has written a few books on Amazon. He seems like a solid character. Can you kids work this out? This was the second thing that angered me that day, as if this were child's play and we should just listen to the adults, as if we're not old enough to be in control of our own feelings and should definitely not be the ones to decide what we consider a betrayal. We're just kids, and we should just work it out. So I gained back some ground on the Dead Poets Society remark from earlier, and that's how the day ended. We've known each other for 9 years and have been a couple for 5. Even if there are legitimate reasons behind her behavior, how do you go back to being the same? This wasn't even a reset. My way of thinking about my ex has fundamentally changed. She became a stranger I know many things about, sure. I still find her attractive, very attractive. The way she looked last Friday was amazing, no denying that. But it was also calculated. Hair done the way I like it, a dress I bought for her, the shoes I like the most, a hint of the perfume I gifted her, and so on. The journal is on my nightstand. I haven't read it, and I probably never will. I did look through it to see if it was indeed a year old, and it is. The way the pages are folded, the ink is clearly older on the first pages, and you can see it progressing through the pages. The Pen she used was attached to the journal, and I tested it. It looks like the same ink, and the ink level in the pen is consistent with how much I assume the pen has been used for the last year to write the journal. It's not a fake. Everything about it is consistent with a year's worth of wear and tear. I don't see what good reading it will do. Make me a tool to be manipulated? Not really. I don't think a year ago, when she started writing it, she intended to use it as manipulation. If what she told me is right, her new therapist suggested the idea to share the journal with me. As for how I'm handling people who are too curious about why the wedding is off, we had a huge difference of opinion that we couldn't resolve, more or less. But if her sister finds out why, and this is highly likely because her sister is very close to their mother, everyone will find out the real reason. Our parents want us to meet again next week. They told me to read the journal, and maybe that helps. Maybe we can work on it. Start fresh since we have so much history. She'll get treatment. She'll get better. She's still the same woman I fell in love with, but she's not well right now. They can tell I still love her. Otherwise, I wouldn't be so theatrical. Their words, not mine. I don't think I'll meet them next Friday, but she did look amazing. I'd like to thank the community for the support and help. It was enough to help me put together a plan of action regarding the therapist. Thank you to those who provided resources and information about what to do. What should I do with her journal? Return it? Keep it and read it 90 years from now? Update. 2. Let's begin. The therapist is no longer working for the clinic. The main reason for this decision most likely has something to do with the clinic being sued. Someone else, completely unrelated to my situation, is suing the clinic. I don't have additional details on that matter. The therapist tried to contact me but was unsuccessful. I suspect she found out about my report on her and wanted information. Who knows? I didn't engage with her. She was blocked, and her inquiries went unanswered. There's a quiet voice in the back of my mind that whispers, it might not have been the smartest decision to put together that report. I think it creates the chance that people behind the lawsuit might contact me for help and shower me with unwanted attention. However, knowing all this, I still can't keep a very satisfied smile off my face knowing the therapist is in trouble. To those who have expressed doubts about my emotions, if this isn't proof enough, I don't know what will satisfy you, and I pray to God you understand sarcasm. With my fiancée, however, things are far more complicated. I wrote a small update in my previous post about her journal. My decision was to return it, and I was very methodical in my approach. The courier our office uses delivered the journal to her that Monday morning. I did include a letter explaining why I hadn't read it. It all came down to her not taking ownership of the situation. I felt that by giving me the journal, she was washing her hands of the matter, and the burden of finding answers was placed on my shoulders. In return, I washed my hands of the matter. Honestly, immediately after they notified me that the journal had been returned, a feeling of regret washed over me. Maybe I should have read it. Later that day, she showed up at my workplace. She didn't make a scene or anything like that. She just waited patiently in the lobby. Her plan was to wait for me until I finished my day and then have a talk with me. Naturally, it didn't take long for me to find out she was there. My options were to either send her away or talk with her, so we talked. Several factors contributed to the collapse of our relationship. Stress. I knew about this, but never the true extent of it. In hindsight, when she started looking for a therapist to help with work stress, I should have been more aware of the situation, but she always maintained everything was fine, so why wouldn't I believe her? Therapist or not, she still had a breakdown. At work, which she hid from me and her family. I could have been a father. She had a miscarriage. She found out she was a few weeks pregnant and wanted to make it something special when she told me about it. However, a few days later, she started bleeding, and that was it. She never told me about this because she was afraid I would see her as unworthy. She knows how much I want to be a father, and she rationalized this would give me the idea that she couldn't bear children. This idea is utterly foolish. Friends. I made no secret in the comments that we had friends and open relationships, and one such friend contacted my fiancée almost a year ago and invited her to lunch. She immediately started unloading the frustrations of her failed marriage onto my fiancé. Her husband has something in common with me. We both had far more partners than our significant others. In my case, it was 26 previous partners. In the case of this friend's husband, the number was a whopping 70. Well, as soon as they got married, he demanded an open relationship from his wife, and she has been miserable ever since. Apparently, the same thing was going to happen to my fiancée if she wasn't careful about me. This friend told my fiancée I was showing the same signs as her husband before they got married. Those we love are not who we think they are. Our fathers. Both work in academia and knew each other for 30 to 35 years. They frequently attend work-related events and parties and usually go together with their wives. When I met my fiancée, it was at such an event. I went with my father because I was interested in meeting a professor who could have helped me with my career, opening some doors. My fiancée replaced her mother because they had a scheduling conflict, and her mother couldn't attend, or so she was told. Turns out, her parents were going through a very rough patch created by her father's infidelity. My fiancée only found out about this recently when she talked with her mother about the concerns raised by the friend from point 3. This was an obvious shock. Her parents were nothing but the perfect couple, a model to follow. They patched things up, obviously, and they managed to maintain the illusion of a perfect marriage throughout the process. Mix these 4 factors with a therapist of dubious motivations, and that's how you end a relationship. The therapist was so happy to plan my open relationship. She confirmed everything the friend said. Men like me will never be satisfied with one woman. I will eventually look for more. There's only one way to correct my cheating impulses. My fiancé has to sleep with other men, at least until we even the numbers. I would, of course, be against it, but that's fine. If I loved my fiancé, I would understand. This was a layered idea. It would both correct my cheating behavior, confirm my love for her, and strengthen our relationship as a result. This plan would have obviously failed, and I think this is exactly what the therapist was aiming for. Our relationship would, of course, not have survived. What the therapist didn't expect was how quickly I would react. At least that's my hypothesis right now. The rest of the week, we met daily, and she answered every question I had. One thing was clear. As prepared to end things as I was, she was. The opposite, ready for the fight of her life if it meant our relationship could be saved. At the end of the week, I had to leave for another city for work-related matters, and I was gone for a month. Originally, it was supposed to be a 2-week trip, but it had to be extended for another 2 weeks, more billable hours, haha. Before I left, I handed my fiancée a copy of the therapy session recording. She knew I had it. It was one of the first things I talked to her about when she showed up at my workplace that Monday. I think listening to the recording shook her to the core. What she remembered about the therapy session was very different from what was on the recording. I think she finally realized where all my actions and behavior towards her came from. People at home knew about my work trip, and for the next 3 weeks, I was left to my own devices, with minimal interference from anyone. It was awesome. Several people in the comments offered to drink a beer with me if I ever happened to be in their city. I took someone up on it. First time I've met another Redditor, surprisingly not a weirdo, haha. He and his wife were wonderful people. The 4th week, my fiancé came to visit. We had maintained contact the previous 3 weeks, going back and forth on various topics, always about us. One major issue had to be sorted out. After our wedding, we were supposed to visit France for 2 weeks, sort of a honeymoon trip. Neither of us could do it immediately after the wedding, so it was booked 3 months after the wedding, and it was coming up. We had the plane tickets, non-refundable. Why can companies do this? We had the hotel reservations. What we didn't have was us. That 4th week, we talked some more and agreed to go to France anyway, as friends. I can already imagine eyes rolling as you read that last sentence. France was amazing. You visit a country like that and realize the US is medieval in comparison. When you visit a museum, you can spot the Americans immediately. How to behave in foreign countries should be a mandatory course in our schools. We returned from France as a couple. This had nothing to do with the magic of Paris. It will, however, be a process. We are not back to our former selves. There is some rebuilding to be done. Several things we have agreed upon, in no particular order. She is looking for a new job, one with less stress. Our friends in open marriages are now considered a negative influence, and we will no longer associate with them. We both like the name, and our first daughter will bear this name. Thank you, France. Never hide anything like a miscarriage from your partner. I am tremendously upset about this one. We will get a puppy and a kitten. She will continue to see her current therapist for a while. When we do get married, we'll do it for us, a smaller ceremony, just us and immediate family. We'll probably go to Italy next. I suppose this isn't the exciting update everyone was waiting for. Many have asked for an update, and if you were looking for rage, hate, revenge, I'm sure there's a version of this where all these and more are possible. But as I said from the beginning, I didn't hate my fiancée. My actions were nothing more than self-preservation at the time. Her actions indicated she wanted something that was contrary to what I thought we both agreed upon. Those worried about her mental state, there is no concern. Once the influence of her therapist dissipated, she returned to her former self, more or less. It's impossible not to be changed by these events, but she is in a very good place. You'll remember she offered me control over the finances, to track her location at all times, open access to all her devices, and so on. Aside from my lack of interest in such a lifestyle, these were just ways of trying everything to continue the discussion. We do agree we should be open with our devices, and for what it's worth, we have always been open, so nothing will change. Here anyway. As for finances, we will do what we have always done, share them. Thank you to those who have talked with me in the comments and private messages. There was some valuable advice I received from some of you, and I will be forever grateful. Writing these posts, but also interacting with you all has been therapeutic and a very good way to relieve pressure.